Hello and welcome to All Who Wins Football. It's Lower League Lingo and it's the big 4-0, everybody. We're 40 episodes old and it's all about the FA Cup. So come and join us after this and let's see if you, like us, are up for the Cup. Yes, hello, welcome. We have got what I believe to be today a shorter show. Now, that's usually the kiss of death. The minute a host on any All 4 channel says that. But genuinely, I mean, this should be half-hour show tops. It really should, because we're not digging in depth necessarily here, but we are just shining a little bit of a spotlight. Before we've done this, and we've just sort of thrown a little bit of conversation into the FA Cup, into what's been going on around the league. And I felt, you know what, rather than doing that, why don't we just give it its own little show, which gives it a good opportunity to highlight any big things that have happened. Speaking of big things that have happened, we've got John and Gareth back with us. John, how are you, sir?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Had a good week and looking forward to this weekend as well. Yep, not too bad, thank you.
Excellent. And Gaza, how are you?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. Lovely 3 points against Durham at the weekend, and an interesting weekend ahead for us, I think.
Lovely. Well, that is what it's all about. And hello to you, Andrew, as well in the chat. We might as well kick off with this because it seems like a good time to do so. But I would like to say a huge thank you to Gareth and John. I did so on Monday, and I will do so again this evening. But thank you very much for the time and the effort that you've put in to Lower League Lingo, for all of your passion and enthusiasm for trying to grow what is happening in lower league football. It really, I think, has paid off a little bit because, as John may know from previous times before, we have been nominated for the FCAs, the Football Content Awards. I've been very clear. Go and vote for All for United WFC. I'm not fussed about being voted for. It's lovely if you'd like to. Please feel free to. Genuinely, just get in there. It is something that I feel very proud of, and we're just looking to build it a bit more. Maybe we'll go for an all-out assault on Connor next year. We'll see how we feel. But genuinely, I'm incredibly thrilled to be a part of that, and that is massively down to the guys that helped us out on Monday, but as I shouted out you guys as well, thank you very much for the time and effort that you have put into the channel. For 40 shows now, so big thank you for that. Right, FA Cup, like I said, I've only really got 2 questions for each person, so genuinely this should be nice and easy. But the first one, I thought we'd just kick off with the teams that we know and love. So Gareth, first thing for you is obviously Wythenshawe, and you've got yourself a tasty little third qualifying round against Paulson Vic. So I do remember you being quite pleasant about the previous week. So it'd be very interesting to see if you're still feeling that way. Paulton Vicks, that's who you've got. How did your FA Cup game go this weekend, and how do you feel about the draw?
So we didn't have an FA Cup game this weekend because the National League clubs don't come in until next weekend. They come in at the third qualifying round rather than the second. But Paulton Vicks had a tough game. They drew 2-2 with Preston and then won the game 4-1 on penalties. So they had an interesting, went right to the wire, and they have been rewarded with a tie against us at Wythenshawe. We were looking at the draw, and we were kind of saying, sort of to ourselves, really, that coming in at a later round is interesting because it's good in the sense that you come in at a later round, but also you miss out on £3,000 from winning that last round. So you come in later, but it means you get less prize money for getting to the same stage. So yeah, there's swings and roundabouts there. I think it's a club that we've had good games against before. When we were in the Division 1 South, they were right up there. They won that league last year. So it's a place we're at home, which is also positive. So hoping we can get a good attendance there. see, hopefully we come through that fixture and into the first round again, which is the furthest we've ever been. That was last year when we got beaten by Middlesbrough. One thing I will mention is part of me was expecting to get Barnsley, and the reason I was half expecting to get Barnsley is because for the previous 2 years at the third qualifying round, Wythenshawe have played Barnsley. So part of me was expecting to see that come out of the hat again, but that hasn't been the case, which is good. Although it would have been quite a nice trilogy, considering that we lost the first one, won the second. It would have been interesting to see where the third one has gone. But no, I'm looking forward to it. Good people at Bolton. Should be a good game, and hopefully we come through.
Absolutely. Now there's 1,001 clubs that you could choose to talk to John Foster MUFC about when it comes to the FA Cup. Well, I've just picked one, and that was the last one that we actively know that he worked at, and that is, of course, Kidderminster Harriers, who've got themselves a third qualifying round tie against Shrewsbury. What do you make of that one, John? Like I say, you spent a lot of time with them last season. Can you see that being a win for Kiddie, or is that going to be quite a tough game?
I'll remember to press the unmute button. I can see it being a win for Kiddie. Obviously, they are the better team. But there is a bit of history here because last season they did play each other in the league and in the League Cup. And Shrewsbury actually knocked Kiddie out of the League Cup last year, back in Tier 5. So Shrewsbury have always been a great cup team. And I remember coming on this show last season saying they're a little bit inconsistent in the league. But in the cups, I'm sure it was them that knocked out Northampton last year in one of the cups. So on the day, Shrewsbury are a very good team. However, if you look at how Kidderminster have developed over the last 12 months, they have got a lot stronger. They're mid-table in Tier 4 at the moment, so a newly promoted side in Tier 4, but still bringing in players now. So even though they're getting pushed on the board, they're still looking at developing. So they'll be looking at this game thinking, they could have probably got a bit of an easier draw than what if they could. You see some of the local teams playing teams that even I've never heard of, maybe Tier 6, Tier 7. And this is certainly a team that Kiddie would have heard of. But I think all in all, so long as Kiddie play the best, then they should be okay with this one.
I tend to agree on that as well. And of course, Stevenage, from my side of things, ended up with quite a good win. They played Newport Pagnell Town, who are, of course, in the East Midlands Regional League Division 1 South. I think I want to go with on that one. They were an absolute delight to go and play. But what an enigma of a team they were to try and find out about. For a start, they play in Buckinghamshire. And Buckinghamshire doesn't have any regional football as such. So those people just get sort of dragged across to all the different shires, which was quite interesting in itself. But yes, the game finished 6-0 for Stevenage, which was, I think, probably reflective of the game, actually, if I'm being honest. I think Newport Pagnell did play well. Stevenage just played better on that occasion, and I don't say that lightly. I think Newport Pagnell gave it everything they had. But it was a good win for Stevenage, and the 1 tier difference did show. They are going to be up against Chelmsford in just under 2 weeks' time now, week and a half. Chelmsford, this is interesting. Chelmsford beat Hertford 5-0. Hertford are in, I believe, the same division. And interestingly enough, they won 5-0, as I said. Last season, Stevenage had to play Chelmsford also in the FA Cup qualifying, and that finished 5-0 to Stevenage as well. But Chelmsford are on a heck of a run at the moment, with quite a lot of games won and not very many goals conceded at all. So that is going to be a very interesting match. I would, if you was asking me to put money down on it, I would probably still put it down on Stevenage, but I think it's going to be a much tighter affair, perhaps, than last season's effort. So we shall see. But that's where we are with Stevenage and Chelmsford. So that's our little chitter-chatter. On to our second and pretty much almost final question, which is, talk to us about your areas. Obviously, lots going on in the second qualifying round. So many matches that we could end up talking about. I mean, when you start looking at the the sort of the numbers and results, you're talking over 120 matches that have been played. We've not got time to talk about 120 games and then talk more about all of the ones that have been drawn, which, by the way, is another 88 fixtures. It's a lot. It's a lot. Although John would give it a go, supporting probably about 87 of them. So it would be fun to see. But sorry, John, it's gone too far now. But Gareth, we'll throw back over to you. When we start thinking about the northern areas, were there any results that sort of stood out for you that were quite good? And are there any draws that have been made that you think look a little bit on the tasty side?
Yeah, I think in terms of the games that have happened, Bolton Wanderers, who were last season's Golden Boot winners, Madison Hadley, playing for Bolton, was there at the final and collected the golden ball. Oh, gold! Yeah, it was a ball, not a boot. Collected the trophy for that at Wembley. So I think first of all that's a fantastic achievement, and I love that there is recognition for some of the teams further down the pyramid. You know, Bolton were tier 6 last year, to get the recognition and be rewarded for that. She scored 11 goals during Bolton's cup run last year, so thoroughly deserved that top goal scorer award. Bolton kicked off by beating Chester 5-0, so they would have both been in the same tier last year. Chester would have been in the south and Bolton in the north, but that was a kind of an eye-catching performance. You know, Bolton have come up, they have performed well, but maybe not quite as well as they were expecting. They are there or thereabouts, but Fylde definitely seem to be eking out a lead at the top of the table, but Bolton coming in and absolutely smashing that. A couple of real statement wins from some teams as well. West Didsbury are not in the relegation zone of the Northwest Premier Division, but they handily dispatched Morecambe 8-1. And Fleetwood Town, who currently sitting rooted to the bottom of the league with 0 points and minus 24 goal difference, beat Colne 9-1 after it being 0-0 at half-time apparently as well. So, you know, some real statement wins there from those two sides, and Fleetwood especially will be hoping to pick up a bit of momentum and take that forward into the next round. Some other teams that you would expect to see winning games, you would have expected Unity really to come through the game against Curzon, and they have done. You would have expected Fylde to beat Marine, and they did 6-0. Touch on the Bolton penalty win against Preston. And the only other result from looking at fifth tier sides, Tranmere beating Ashton Town 2-1. So, you know, some good results there for some good teams. There'll potentially be some sides disappointed, but I think on the balance, the favourites won each time. There was one result though, which I've realized I've not spoken about. FC Darwin playing against Bury, and that is the only game there that had a tier 5 side against a tier 5 side, and Darwin won that game 3-0. So they're all through. Couple of postponements. Part of me expected us to get an away tie against the winner of Carlisle versus Penrith, but the Cumbrian derby was rained off, and Manchester Laces hosting FC United was also rained off. That game due to be played at Wythenshawe Town FC. What I will say, though, is us over at Wythenshawe FC on the other side of Wythenshawe. Our pitch was absolutely fine, and we managed to get the game on without a problem. So, you know, maybe it's not quite as good over there at Town, but who knows? Looking at the draw for the next round, there are definitely some interesting games popping up. A couple of tier 4 versus tier 4 sides. So Norton and Stockton Ancients drawing Leeds United, Chorley drawing Cheadle Stingers. They kind of jump out to me quite handily as they do. Barnsley, like I mentioned before, fresh from facing us for the last 2 years in the FA Cup, now have the pleasure of hosting Mancunian Unity. Unity are a side with lots of history in this competition. They went to the third round last year and got beaten by Newcastle, I believe. Or it may have been the year before, but they've definitely been knocked out by Newcastle in the last couple of years. So they have had, some fantastic runs, and they will be well experienced at knocking out sides in the leagues above them, beating both Stockport and Leeds last season. For the first possible opportunity to draw a National League side, they have done. So that'll be an interesting trip for them. Then just a couple of others, some things like York City, who are kind of towards the bottom, not quite, they're out of the relegation zone, but they are they've only picked up a few points this season so far. They have a tie against West Didsbury, so that'll be an interesting game. And then some others, just to pick out a few. Fleetwood Town have South Shields. South Shields we thought may trouble the top of Tier 5 last season. Didn't in the end. Blackburn Rovers have Stockbridge Park Steels. So that will be an opportunity for Blackburn, hopefully, to kickstart their season, potentially. And Durham Sestria will be making another trip back down to Lancashire as they play Accrington Stanley. So there's plenty of interesting ties coming up around the north. If I had to pick one to look out for, I would say that Chorley versus Cheadle could be the pick of them all. Cheadle have won every game so far this season in the league. Chorley were up there last season in the Division 1 North. Haven't quite been as hot at the start of this season, but that is a little bit of a local game. So they're always a little bit spicier, mean a little bit more in the FA Cup. It'll be interesting to see who comes through that. And hopefully we come through our tie against Bolton. We see what awaits everybody in the next round.
Certainly sounds interesting up in the north, but as we come down to the Midlands, what's happening over there, Mr. Foster? Any big matches that have caught your eye?
I think the West Midlands has pretty much gone to plan, but the East Midlands hasn't. So I think it's been quite good looking at a few Twitter pages throughout the week, because it is very much East versus West at the moment, and it's growing, so it's bubbling up nicely, and we'll go through that shortly. Just three games from the West Midlands. Lightown, one of the big hitters in Tier 5, they won Droitwich 6-1. Reddish Borough won League Town 5-3. Those two teams play in the same league, so that was a very good win for Reddish Borough. And Solihull Moors won 2-1 away from home against Shifnal Town, who are also two Tier 5 sides. So I think when you look at the West Midlands, I think your strongest teams are looking very strong. It looks like that the gap is almost getting quite big there. It's the teams that you expect to win are winning, and winning quite comfortably. But then when you move over to the East Midlands, Chesterfield lost 5-1 away from home to Bradford, and they're towards the top of Tier 5 in the East Midlands. Gainsborough, again, towards the top. They lost 4-1 to Ilkley Town. But there was one success for the East Midlands, an 88-minute winner by Loughborough Foxes Vixens against Notts Trents Uni. So Loughborough Vixens at least getting that win on the board, which has set up a very nice tie now. Tier 5 against Tier 5, East versus West Midlands. It's Loughborough Vixens against Reddish Borough. So that's going to be my lookout in regards to regional leagues. There is one other tie that I'm looking forward to, Walsall Women against Lightown. I look at Walsall and I think it's a big badge. It's never really hit the great heights, but I think the last couple of years, their women's team are moving forward. I think when you look at Walsall, there's 2 or 3 Walsall under like a different Walsall name. That is the biggest one. That's the one that's linked to Walsall. Walsall men's side that we were all aware of. So they're pretty much one of the best teams in Tier 6, and they're taking a light tone. So that'll be a great benchmark for those. And I think they'll probably put on quite a good show there. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens there. Just on the National League side, we mentioned Kiddy Harriers against Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury won 8-0 to get to this stage in the last round. Worcester City play away to a team I've never heard of, Standground Cardia Sports. So I'll have to look out for that one. Leithfield play away against Spalding United. And then there is quite a level game here, Sutton Coldfield against Donny Wells. So definitely looking out for that one. That's definitely one that could actually, mean something there. Lincoln United against Overchurch, so that's Tier 4 against Tier 5. Barnmere and Sheffield FC women play each other, so I think both teams would have probably preferred an easier draw there. I think both teams will think it's possible to get through, but that's two Tier 4 sides who are doing very well this season, and I'm sure they would have liked an easier tie. And then finally, Stourbridge going all the way to Australia to play Melbourne Dynamos. Again, another team I've never heard of. Melbourne Dynamos playing in Tier 6 Central. So that'll be interesting there. But a great chance for Stourbridge to gain that momentum and get another win on the board.
I think that is pretty fair as well. Looking at the South, there are numerous different things that have happened in the South. So let's take a look at some of the games. Leyton Orient had a pretty good win against Dussindale and Hellersden. They won 5-1, which I have to say was probably feeling a little bit on the unexpected side, but Dussindale, for it to be such a big result, not necessarily for the fact they won. They are going to end up facing Needham Market, who beat Toby 3-1. I love that as a team, just Toby. To me, that's a carvery. But yeah, there they are. And I can never think of anything else when I see that. So there we go. So they were carved up good and proper anyway by Needham Market on that one. AFC Sudbury, of course, a WNL side. They've got quite an easy game, really. You would imagine they're going to play Clapton Community, who won 1-0 against Histon. So you feel like Sudbury are probably going to do well there. But quite a big game, I think, that has been drawn is an all WNL affair where MK Dons will be facing Luton, which I think is an absolute doozy. So if you're asking me to pick one that you might want to see, that's big, because that is a big side potentially for the first round that will not be making it through. And with Luton struggling a little bit as well, you just don't know how that's going to finish. Haringey have been drawn against Harpenden in the Battle of the H's. Haringey absolutely bopped Thetford 7-0. Harpenden have been struggling a little bit in the RWFL, but have managed to get a couple of wins under their belt now. You would think Haringey, being slightly higher up in the league, should take that win, but it's the FA Cup. Who knows? Norwich, they are, of course, a WNL Division 1 South East side. They will have the opportunity to play Hutton, who have struggled a little bit as well since joining the Premier Division of the Eastern Region. That will be a tough game for them to go away for. Barking absolutely bopped Cambridge City 9-0, which is quite something. Cambridge City were relegated from the Eastern Region, but 9-0 is Barking are on Tier 5, Cambridge City now Tier 6. So there is a little bit of a discrepancy there that Cambridge City might want to address. Barking will be travelling away. They're playing Ramsey and Mistley, which I'll be honest, sounds a little bit like a detective doubles act. So looking forward to that. But they beat Brantham 5-1. So good luck to them. Atletico London. Remember them guys? We were talking about them, London Seaward. They won 12-1 against Southend. And their joyous return is to an FAWNL Division 1 South East side where they get to renew rivalries with Cambridge United. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not Atletico London can manage to pull something out of the bag there against a team in a league where, to be fair to them, they did not really manage to pull up any trees. Perhaps the best moment for me, whilst trying to review and research some of this, was looking at, again, some of the fixtures. Royston have done very well. They won 6-0 as well, just like Stevenage did. They beat Mulbarton Wanderers, who are in the league below. They've been drawn, if you believe the FA Cup website, against Costasy Sports. So, of course, I went off to have a
Sorry.
look. Go on.
Just 1 minute. It's Cossey, not Costasy, just Cossey.
Cossey?
Cossey, yeah, it's just outside Norwich.
But there's
No,
a team.
we don't. Yeah, we don't say things like that in Norfolk. No, it's
we
just
don't
Cossey.
say things like that in Norfolk. Or as you might say, we don't say things like "ha" in Norfolk. Just don't pronounce the T's. But anyway, that team, doesn't matter how you say it, because they didn't win. They lost 2-0 to Wormley. And yet, amazingly, they've been put into the FA Cup draw, which was quite exciting. So poor Wormley, who have actually been drawn at home against Royston, they're not there. I'll try and say it right. Cossey Sports, who managed to do that. Genuinely, the fact there's a TES in the middle of that has blown my mind, Gareth. And I will probably write a strongly worded letter to the people of Cossey as to how T's are used. But there we go. Fair play to them. Bowers Pitsea, they're going to be up against Colney Heath. Nothing too unexpected there. You'd imagine Bowers would get through that. London Bees will be entering the competition against Colchester United, who managed to beat Enfield 2-1. Again, you would probably put your money on Bees for that one. Dunstable Town, who are, of course, an amalgamation of AFC Dunstable and Dunstable Town, have won 2-1 against Watford Ladies Development. So they've got a all Eastern region clash against Wroxham, who are indeed a division higher. Leatherhead will play Dulwich. Leatherhead was a good one. They won 2-1 against Aylesford. Aylesford, of course, in Tier 5. Leatherhead in Tier 6. Aylesford have been doing really well. 4th in Tier 5 in the London and South East. And Leatherhead in the league below beat them 2-1. So that's a big result for them. They get to face Dulwich Hamlet. Wickham will play Chesham. Maidstone will be travelling over to Badshot Lee, which will be interesting. Saltdean United bopped Ebbsfleet 13-0, which I'll tell you now is one of those that they will be talking about for weeks, if not months. And they've got New Haven in the draw. Another big game that you could see will be Dartford against QPR, which I think will be quite interesting because Dartford have been right up the top of the London and South East. And of course, QPR being in Division 1 South East side in the WNL will be quite interesting. And Reading will play Brentford in that as well. But for me, the one that I'm going to pick for you to have a look at guarantees a lower league side to be in the first round of the FA Cup, which is what we love. And that game is South London against Ashridge Park. Ashridge Park managed to beat Kidlington 3-2, and that's what got them into there. But South London, who are in the Greater London Women's Football League, so just in case you're wondering, you've got London and South East Tier 5, London and South East Division 1 Tier 6, then you've got the Greater London Women's Football League, and that's where South London reside. They beat Tunbridge Wells 8-0, so will be, you would imagine, looking at taking on the Berkshire side and winning. And if they do, that's, like I say, whichever team wins it will be into the first round proper. There are, of course, some big ones going on down in the southwest, and unfortunately Stu isn't here to talk about it, so we're going to ask him. Well, we're going to ask him. I'll ask you two the question. They've got quite an interesting draw, Moneyfields. They are going to be away to Fulham. What do you reckon on that one? Because Fulham have really been doing well, flying through their division and making it up. But Moneyfield's also at the top of, round the top of the southwest as well. So what do you two reckon? Fulham, Moneyfields?
Out of respect for Stu, definitely Moneyfield. I think it is one of those games where you're looking at it. I think there's probably one or two in every area where you look at it and you think, okay, this is the kind of cup game that you want, because you don't want it to go so one-sided to you that it is a 5-0 win. So I think this is definitely a game that could go either way, and we look forward to seeing, equal games, don't we, and competitive games, and that's certainly one of them. So for me, yeah, let's go for Moneyfields because we've got links to look Moneyfields on the show with Stu. But yeah, Fulham certainly having a great time of it at the moment, and wouldn't be surprised to see any results from there, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that both sides will have looked at the draw when it came through eventually at 4:00, got it, opened it, looked at it, and gone, "Oh, and would have been disappointed with the draw, which should set it up nicely for a neutral. I don't want to call it one way or the other, but yeah, I think that as a neutral, that's definitely the fixture from that region, potentially even of the entire round, alongside probably Chorley and Cheadle for me, that really sort of strikes out as and being one to watch. So yeah, very much looking forward to it. But I would like to say another one that interests me from that region is Royal Wootton Bassett Town against Forest Green Rovers, just because that sounds like an incredibly... I in my head, I picture that football ground as like having a nice little stream running alongside it, as being like quite idyllic. But I don't actually know what it looks like. But yeah, Royal Wootton Bassett seems like a lovely place.
It's a good job that's not in Norfolk. Imagine if it's at the Royal Wound Bass. It'd be quite a place. The Royal Wound Bass would be great, like the Dunbass. It's going to keep going that now. Listen, there are some interesting matches as well. You've mentioned that one, of course, against Forest Green Rovers, Bristol Rovers against Marine Academy Plymouth, and Bournemouth Sports against AEK Bocco are also sides that we have spoken about in the last few weeks. So certainly they'll be good. And I'm amazed that nobody has picked Portishead Town against Sticker. I'm sure we spoke about them last year, but what a team name that is, Sticker. I wouldn't swap that for anything. I really, really wouldn't. Right, sorry, Gaza. Sorry. My last question I have is not a fan of that one. It's like our headstone shiny.
That's worse than the Carvery. That's worse than the Carvery one
Really?
that you made earlier.
Oh.
Yeah. The Carvery one I was impressed with. I mean, I'm impressed with both. I'm impressed with where you pull them from. The speed with which you execute them as well is impressive. But it does make me put my head in my hands.
The best bit is that there is no preparation. I just go for it, and one day that's going to get me into trouble. But until then, we'll crack on. We've had some big matches. It was £600 to get through the preliminary round. It was £1,800 to get through the first qualifying round. If you've just won in the second qualifying round, you've taken home a cool £3,000. This one, though, is where the money starts to ramp up a little bit, and you start looking at four figures no matter what happens. It's £4,000 if you win. It's £1,000 if you lose. Gareth, I'm going to ask you from a boardroom point of view on this one, especially at a club like Wythenshawe. When you start talking about these sorts of numbers, obviously you've got a men's side as well. But for a women's side, when you start talking about the fact that obviously Wythenshawe will have only played the one round, so if they win, it's only £4,000. But looking back at last year, £4,000 in this one, £3,000 in the last one, £7,000. Is this the sort of thing you can budget for, or is this just a bonus?
I think the sensible thing to do is budget to lose at the first round that you go in at, so that you're not necessarily relying on anything. But a good cup run can be the difference between breaking even and making a loss. It can be the difference between having a budget to reinvest for next season and not. So, you look at Mancunian Unity, they got to the third round last year. They will have gone in at the second qualifying round. So they would have, I suspect by that point, they're taking home five figures in the region of £25,000 probably. And that can completely change your season. It can change what you can offer, whether that's some sort of expenses, whether that's a different facility, potentially. That it can, really kind of make a difference. And different clubs are going to have different budgets. Different clubs are going to have different levels of expenditure depending on, do they own their own ground? Do they have to rent a ground? Do they have their own training facilities? Do they have to pay for those? there's lots and lots of things to consider here. But yeah, the FA Cup's huge, and there is that kind of magic of the cup, and I don't think that's lost. I think actually, since getting involved in women's football and being with other clubs in the competition, I've said this before, but it genuinely blows my mind that if we have a few good performances, 4 wins, we could be playing Man United. And Leeds United, I said this I think on the last time we showed the show, Leeds United I think 3 years ago, 3-4 years ago, drew Arsenal when they got to the 4th round. So yeah, to me that's mad. To me that's crazy that we are entering a competition now where the finals going to be played at Wembley. If any of our girls go on some mad goal scoring runs, then they could be at Wembley picking up a top goal scorer award. And yeah, I just hope that that the competition is played with the spirit that it's meant. I think for me, it kind of loses a bit of shine when there's no stories left to play and when it just becomes essentially the WSL playing WSL sides. That's obviously part and parcel of the game. But yeah, I love a cup run. And hopefully there is something here that we'll look back on in a few years and say, oh, do you remember that? Do you remember when such and such a team got to such and such a round and drew such and such a team? And yeah, it'll be good. There's memories that memories will be made. And yeah, hopefully, hopefully it's for us at Wythenshawe or for Stevenage or Moneyfields or whichever one of John's teams he wants to put the hat on for that day. Kidderminster, Stourbridge. Yeah, it's a fantastic competition, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
For sure. John, final little bit from you, and what it comes from for me is a logistical one on this, because I was really intrigued. I was talking about Newport Pagnell earlier, and their FA Cup first qualifying round match that they had to play was their first game of the season. The league started so late that their first game was the FA Cup first qualifying round, followed by the league match, followed by the FA Cup second qualifying round. So their first 3 games, you'd argue, potentially 2 of the most important fixtures for them, and all they've really had is a pre-season for that. Why do you have any inkling as to why it is that the West Midlands are so late? Like, honestly, it's a bit like the Spanish when you go on holiday and they have that little siesta. And I can't work it out. Why is it so delayed? Because to me, you want to have had a couple of league games at least in order to sort of get your eye in.
Of course, I don't know the definite answer for that. I think you guys have spoke about it before. The northern teams are obviously more likely to get poor weather, whereas Midland side is not as bad. But I've been a part of it where you do get a lot of poor weather and you do get a lot of postponement. So I don't know why it starts late. But as for playing 2 FA Cup games in your first 3 games, you just have to hit the ground running, don't you? And there's no leeway, I suppose, because it is quite regionalised. I think everybody will be in the same boat, so there is that advantage. So I kind of understand that. But yeah, I think if you ask any club, I'm sure they'd want to build up to the FA Cup and you want to get a bit of momentum before you get there. But yeah, it's not something that I would definitely want to be. I'm sure even the managers wouldn't want it either. I suppose the advantage is if you're a stable side and you haven't had much of a change in that summer, you probably see yourself as a bit of an advantage of a club that maybe has gone through a lot of change. So you could be on the right side of it there. But no, I would much rather play a few games first before you start going into the FA Cup.
I'd agree. I mean, Stevenage would play 5, and then that's our first cup game. So I just feel like it makes, for me, a massive difference, especially if you can build up a head of steam. Well, there we go. That is another week did. I said about half hour, and that wasn't bad. That was pretty good. We did good work, team. Well done. We're getting better with our timekeeping. That's superb to see. I wasn't quite sure how to end this particular show because obviously on Monday we ended our show with a little bit more about Matt Beard, and I feel like rather than the jolly ending that we have had of previous ones, it would be prudent to do the same again this evening. So that is what we will do. Please feel free to go back onto the Monday show. There was a whole section of memories of Matt Beard and things such as that. He made it to the FA Cup final with Chelsea before, so it was a competition that I know he would have had incredibly close to his heart as well. And I would ask you all, as we said before, if at any point in your life you are feeling that there is a problem that is too big for you to encounter, it's never too big to go and talk to your mates about. That's what they're there for. So please always feel like you can speak to, please just have someone to speak to. There's people there, the Samaritans, if you're someone you don't want to talk to someone you know, but please do, because we all know it's a permanent solution to what really is a temporary problem. So please do. Yourselves, check in with your mates, just send them a message. And above all, let's just be kind. Will we remember him, Matt Beard, once again. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening. And we'll see you again next week.